Today, Michael, I want to talk about traditional relationships. This is Sheryl Aronson on the road to your heart, and as always, I'm with Dr.
Michael Berlin.
And we are here today to talk about relationships. My favorite topic, Michael.
We're a good role model, by the way. We've
Yeah.
been friends for...
Since 1979.
Yikes.
That's how long. When I first moved to LA.
Wow.
And I discovered the softball game going on at Roxbury Park. And believe it or not, Michael and I still play softball.
46 years later.
Yes.
I actually also, that's the year I came from New York also.
I know. So we do. We're both New Yorkers. We're both psychotherapists. And we both love to talk about relationships.
Absolutely.
But, today, Michael, I want to talk about traditional relationships because our society, we're so
Does
open
it still
now.
exist anymore?
I don't even know. Especially, it's very interesting because, younger couples that I have, I find like they might get pregnant first, buy a house, then get married. Nothing wrong with any of these things. I mean, it seems like it's so much more open as to what.
But it's not old school, which was you didn't live together until you were married. Sex, that's a whole other question also,
right.
Before marriage. So the world is totally different.
It's totally different. Though it did start to change, I think, when you and I were growing up, like maybe back in the 70s when women's lib was coming in and birth control. All of that did open the door for women to be more exploratory. Sex before marriage, for sure.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
And before 1976, the age of AIDS.
Oh, yeah.
Changed everything.
That definitely changed everything, for sure.
I remember, just as an aside, I think Time magazine had a story once about the disease that was ravaging, herpes.
Oh, yeah.
Now fast forward, think if that's the only thing you had.
Worry about it. I know.
You were still alive.
Exactly.
It changed the world. So
I remember when I was in college, and I was a pretty, I would say, open, liberal, person. I still thought about getting married, and actually I did get married right after college, which I shocked myself when I think back, but I wanted that to happen. And it wasn't, but I also wanted a career at that point in time. And I think it was eye-opening for me because I remember even at that young age, I really didn't know myself at all. I didn't know what I wanted, but that concept of marriage was still appealing.
You know what? And I think also it's as if we had one foot in old school, in tradition.
That's true.
If you come through the 50s and early and mid 60s, we had tradition.
That's right.
Old school, as they
from
may
our
call it.
parents.
Exactly. And the morality, that whole thing. Wasn't it Lucy and Desi slept in separate beds?
Right.
So, okay, they were married and she was pregnant, but they were in separate beds. So that spoke to, I think what we brought in. And when we dealt with the 60s and the 70s and all those changes, that old voice was still in our heads.
Part of it was in our heads, right?
Well, we were able to go past it, but it was whispering always.
Yes, and I'm not sad about it either because I actually, when I look back in time, I really appreciated that my parents were strict with me about our grandparents. We had to see them pretty much once a week. All our relatives, we didn't get to question, no, I don't want to go. No, I don't want to do that. No, you're going. But it was a beautiful connection to our family.
Well, you know what also? I mean, mine like yours, on Sundays were the cousins at my grandmother's house. That's one thing. The other thing was there were a lot of extended families. Yes. Downstairs, grandma lived, and your aunt and uncle lived up the street.
That's
what I mean? There was a whole thing going on.
That was going on. And you felt really close to your aunts and uncles. My aunts and uncles, I were very close, even though I had actually an aunt and uncle who lived in Los Angeles. Believe it or not, that's probably one of the reasons I actually came out here. But I do appreciate that now that they made us do certain things, and that there were certain rules to go by. But when I decided, at 21, I said, Mom, I'm getting married. My parents, they threw me a nice Jewish wedding.
Yeah, and you moved on. This is a whole other world we live in, and I'm sure when you see couples now, I mean, that feels like 100 years ago.
It feels like 100 years ago. So what's going on today in the world of traditional relationships? I will say this. Many couples are waiting longer to actually get married. Couples are still getting married, but definitely probably in their 30s.
As opposed to right out of college.
As opposed to right out of college. And giving themselves time to be professional and make money, and they want to buy a house. Buying a house is very, very much on people's minds at this point. Though tradition is being broken, like I said, because people don't necessarily think marriage is such a great thing anymore.
Think of it this way. Isn't the divorce rate close to 50%?
It has been,
I mean,
yes.
that's a scary number.
It is a scary number.
Is it because we live longer? There are more sort of pulls in the world? Is it sometimes it's a mismatch? You get married for the wrong reasons? I mean, that's a big number. That's not just a small...
No.
Some people are not compatible. Half of every wedding. So this Sunday, if there are 100 weddings, 1,000 weddings, 500 end in divorce.
Oh, darn statistics, yeah.
You know what I mean? That's sort of... So you say to yourself, what's causing that? Are people getting married for the wrong reasons? Is it just how life is, that people grow and change? You always talk about change.
Yes.
If one changes and the other doesn't, if I want you how you were when we got married 20 years ago, but you're not the same person. No. What do we do with that?
Yes. So luckily, even though maybe tradition is being broken, the other good news is that we're much more educated about relationships. There's so much more we can look to in social media and books and seminars. It's quite the big topic. So we can really learn about relationships, whereas our parents, when they were getting married, that was that person. There was no ifs and buts about it. But in a way, that necessarily wasn't a bad thing, because you learned how to work together, maybe through some of life's challenges, and the option wasn't to break up or get divorced.
There are two things that sort of occur to me with this. One of them is, do you remember the movie A Bronx Tale?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I remember I think it was De Niro who said this, or someone had said it about him, which was, who's the real hero? The mobster up the street who's giving you money, or your father who works 9 to 5, comes home, works every day to support the family? You know what I mean? In other words, there was a certain kind of grounding in the old days. And I think both good and bad in the world we live in, we talk social media. Sometimes I think social media is one of the most dangerous things there is in the world. It's one of the most incredible, obviously.
Yes.
But at the same time, I think it gives messages sometimes. You talk about relationships. People read stuff on the internet or whatever it is. You know what I mean? And I think it pulls them in the wrong directions. It's like a fantasy that's created out there with pictures and stories and all that stuff. And I think people buy into that. And I think it's really dangerous in a certain way.
Yes.
Not all of it, but just some of it.
It's very dangerous, and I can attest to that, especially, again, in the dating world. It's so... We had to meet, we've talked about this before, but it's still an important subject for me. Meeting people organically as opposed to meeting someone online.
A picture and a few words.
A picture.
And that's all you know.
But then the option, if, like, let's say you and I are dating, and all of a sudden, you might be on, oh, you know what? That girl looks prettier than this one right here. I'm gone.
Yeah.
Or if we're starting to hit maybe a relationship bump in the road, which is inevitable, I want to deal with that. No. Next. So and it's so easy to do. I mean, I have some young ladies that are, and they're again in their 30s that I talk to as clients. I just like every time, well, I went out and then I hear the story and I'm like hopeful, oh, please, and it'll be good. And then within a few months, it's boom. And do you know that there's this, I don't know if you know about this on Facebook. The women have it. I don't know if the men have it. Have you dated this guy?
I love it.
Actually, and then the women say, yeah, and he said, so if you want to check up on somebody, you can just put it in there. And if another woman has had an experience, you can find out, nah, he's going to dump you. I've been, yes. So very interesting.
The other piece to that, I think, this is the remote control era. Mm-hmm. Everybody is impatient.
So impatient.
Relationships are, if you're in a serious one, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's the long term. And you're going to get ups and downs, and you're going to have disappointments, and you're going to change and fight and love and everything in the middle. But people are so darn impatient. Boom, they're out the door. There's always something better, so they think.
And it's not only impatience, it's also a bit of self-centeredness too, because people now, again, I have my own space, I have my own job, I have my own money, I have this. Women obviously do too. I don't want to share that, or I don't want to sacrifice anything to be with you. If I have to sacrifice,
how awful is that?
It's so bad
that they've equated a relationship with a sacrifice.
Right.
That's why we're at 50% divorce rate.
I know, but time, spent. I'm used to my own space. I don't want you taking that up with me. But let's talk about traditional relationships a bit. Why maybe they are positive and helpful for couples.
The first thing that comes to my mind is about time, which is you give the relationship time. You court in a certain way. Now, courting is different today, obviously, than it was, but, you're not in a hurry to jump into, people meet each other. I hear this story all the time. How long do you know each other? Well, 2 months, we bought a house, we got married. I'm thinking, oh, man. In the best of circumstances, that's still trouble. You don't know who that person is.
That's right.
I mean, I'm not talking serial killers. I'm just talking about someone who has had a life and moved in the world in a certain way, and then suddenly you have to compromise. There's somebody else living in that house with you.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And that's not an easy
People
thing.
don't even realize how complicated that is.
That is not an easy thing.
Not an easy thing.
So I think on that level, the tradition about don't be impatient, give it some time and courtship and get to know each other and, some bumps and ups and downs and what you like and what doesn't work. And, they're not going anywhere. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And if you're in a hurry, I think you're in trouble.
So let's start at the beginning. And that goes back to, what do I want? What do you want? When I'm out there on the dating app or on the dating scene, I have to tell myself, this is what I'm looking for in life. I do want a committed relationship. I do want to get married. Now, of course, for women, as soon as they get into the 30s, if they want children,
the clock is ticking.
The clock, and it is. Even though we can still have children in all sorts of different ways and later age, it does tick. But I think it's important, but I don't think the dating apps really can address people's, if you really want more, like, I'm going to put it in quotes, a traditional relationships. I want to meet someone, I want to get married, I want to have children. They're not very good at addressing that, because people are on there saying yes, I want a serious, and they don't necessarily really
want a partner on Saturday nights.
Yeah, right.
I want sex on Sunday morning. I want, you know what I mean? It's a very short-sighted for many people. It's like, why are you dating? Well, I don't want to be alone. Yeah. I understand I don't want to be alone, but I think the alternative is not to jump at whatever you see. You know what I mean? It's to be in the world. Because, you mentioned it about, it's like organic meeting.
Right.
They don't do that anymore. You work with someone, you know someone, you've been friends, and then you're connected, as opposed to I see a picture and I swipe left or right.
And you read the profile. Okay, of course there's a profile. And you think, oh, well, that sounds good. So I think, though, we have to say, okay, if this is what I want, then I want to make sure the person I'm going to start dating wants this same thing.
But
that's really hard to navigate.
How do you separate out? They say they want the same thing, and in fact, they're moved by something completely different.
I don't know. And I'm really, it keeps making me want to, I think this is so necessary to start some kind of organization or service for people who really, really, really do want to be married, and they can come together and meet people and also get, counseling skills or relationship skills too. I kind of almost think this is so necessary because people are having terrible, men and women alike. It's not just women, everybody is. But we have to have the dating apps. So please make sure that the person you're dating, how many months or weeks do you want to be with somebody before you start? You can't even say, you're my boyfriend, I'm your girlfriend. People, they don't even want to use those words anymore. Oh my goodness.
When you're an adult, when you're 35 and you say, oh, that's my girlfriend, you sound like you're 18 again.
Right,
you know what I mean? So,
but meaning that's the person.
You're your partner. It's not.
No. It's not the word. It's not. It's like we're. What's the word? Hanging, or we're hanging together.
We're hanging out.
We're hanging out. That's not my girlfriend. That's not my. I don't even know how long it takes to say this is my serious person.
My daughter last night on the phone said to me, I'm hanging out with somebody.
See, there you go.
And I said to her, what exactly does that mean?
Know.
Hanging out is like I hung out with my friends.
Right.
In the schoolyard. Exactly. This is a whole different hanging out.
It is a whole different hanging out. But I know with also, like my son, when he's he finally has a lovely young lady, but it took him quite a while to find somebody. But he said, no, Ma, you can't meet her yet. No, we're not, that's not my person yet. How long do I have to wait to say that's your person? So people are they can't even talk about, oh, you're my person. We're just going to date exclusively now.
Well, the other thing that I think I got this from my daughter. Yeah. When they say, oh, we're hanging out, what it really says is one of them is not willing to say, maybe this is more serious than we want to acknowledge.
Right.
I'm hanging out with you for 6 months. We hang out every weekend. Hello, what did we call that in the old times?
So even with the language, it doesn't equate to commitment.
Oh, agreed.
Okay, and that's really important. I mean, it's very fine if you want to date other people and you want to date around, but once you get to that, oh no, I'm ready to, commit, then I think we have to change our vocabulary or be able to talk to people.
And you have to find the right person that's also in the same stage.
Yes, you do. But how do we make that happen on these dating apps? I really don't have an answer except know yourself, know what you want, and then say, after 3 months, maybe, I'm just using that as a measure, it's okay to ask the person, are we exclusive?
Right.
Is this something you can see has a future? Why can't you say that? Or 3 to 6 months. Okay.
Now
Go ahead.
Here's the other end of that.
Go ahead. Be devil's advocate.
No. This one makes me laugh. This one is funny. I have a friend who says they want to connect.
Yeah.
But it's as if they're relationship averse. Why? Because they'll go out on the first date and I'll say, well, how was it? And the response is, I don't think I want to marry her. I'm going, marry her? You had a cup of coffee. How about just like dinner or a movie? Why don't we start easy?
Right.
I want to marry him or I don't.
And what? How do you even know
How do you know that over a cup of coffee?
Nothing.
I know.
You do not know that.
I know, but it just makes me laugh. It's like, I don't want to marry him. I'm thinking, marry him? How about just, talking to him tomorrow? Why don't we start easy?
What do you think causes that? I look at you, I get your aura, and you're not beautiful enough, or you're
because
not.
I think some of it is like the fantasies cloud the reality.
Fantasies.
You want something, but in truth, that something doesn't really exist.
Yes.
And two, I think, this is a tough one. I think we bring our history to the moment.
For sure.
You work with people all the time. So if you've been burned several times or even once, you are very reluctant. Now, you may cover it with, oh, yeah, I'm looking, I'm open, whatever. But you always remember that burning. And I've heard more than one person say when they go out of this cup of coffee, the entire conversation is about the previous person.
Oh,
Each one is sitting and going, oh, the last relationship I had. I'm thinking, that's when you want to slip out of that cup of coffee fast.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, they did all these terrible things to me. I'm thinking, yikes.
You don't want
We are in the wrong place.
That's right.
Because you're not really looking for a relationship. You're looking to just unload.
That's not okay either.
Yeah, how do we bring some maturity? A notion that if you live long enough, we've had great relationships. We've had less than great relationships.
Right.
We've had a lot of things in our life, and you have to just put it in context to, okay, this is a new moment. This is a different person, a different set of needs. And you have to see where that relationship goes. I think if you can do that, then at least you're open.
Yes, I agree with all of that. I do like the concept, actually, of traditional relationships as far as where we meet, we get to know each other. Yeah. And we're exclusive. That commitment is also there. That you're interested in what I'm interested. We have a shared vision, shared goals. And okay, so let's say then we do meet somebody, luckily on a dating app, because I don't know where else you're going to meet somebody. Please be open, though, if somebody, I'm just making an appeal.
Work, school, play.
If you see somebody, just talk to them and get to know people organically. There is nothing wrong with that. I don't know why that's such a taboo now. Then we start to talk about, do you want, a family? Do you not want a family? That is extremely important to talk about. Because if I don't want children, or one person wants children and one person really doesn't, that is not going to make a happy relationship at all.
I have an answer, by the way, to the question that you raised about why organically it doesn't happen. Because you can't hide. See, the beauty of dating apps or all the social media stuff is you're hidden behind words and some picture you post. You can disappear anytime you want. When you're face to face with somebody, exactly. You have to be there. You have to be present. And if not, then you're responsible for that. You know what I mean?
Yes,
the other stuff, it's easy on social media to throw words out.
Right.
And
I think it's good for couples to, have this discussion because, again, depending on your age and where you are in wanting a relationship, after 6 months, I think you pretty much know this person is going to work. We can go further, or we're just staying in the same place. I think then you're starting to waste your time with somebody. What do you think, Michael?
Oh, I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I think the point is, it comes back to what you said. You have to really know in your heart of hearts what you want and what you're open for, as opposed to what you think you should want. And there's a big difference between those things. You know what I mean? I think if you really want a relationship, you really want to be committed and connected, then you're looking in a certain way. And I think if you're either desperate or just want to date and just want to move around, that's another road. Neither good nor bad. It's just another road.
Absolutely.
And I think when the two cross, that's when you're in trouble. You're looking for one thing, I'm looking for something else,
No, then you have to watch out for that. You have to have enough sense of self, which again is hard to have, to say, we're not in the same place. Let's just part ways now. But again, you got to give it some time.
You know, the other thing, and I would put this in caps, in bold letters.
Okay.
And you probably said it to your clients 1,000 times. You have to trust your instinct.
Mm-hmm.
I am a big believer in when I really listen to, when my bells go off in my head, it's trying to tell me something.
Right.
Occasionally, I don't listen. That's my own hubris. But when you do, I think you know the person in front of you. You get a feeling. You know, listen, some people can disguise it well, okay. But for the most part, you get a feeling about who you're with.
Right.
And do you want to be with them? And are they genuine?
And are they caring when you're struggling? And can you talk about
in
things?
all times are they there? In the good times, it's easy to be there.
Yes.
It's easy to be there. You know what I mean? It's the not good times that,
absolutely.
You know.
And then, of course, like let's say you do meet somebody and you want to marry them. There's the engagement. Now, I've never had to do it because I'm, the female, but how is that for a man to decide and the pressure of all of that to finally ask, his lady to marry him?
The first time
yes.
was sort of post-college, and it was the traditional way. We talked about it, and, we graduated college together, you get that job, you were living a certain life. And I remember asking Ruthie, my ex's father, I said,
that's nice.
I said, I'd like to marry your daughter. And he said, it's about time.
Oh, right.
So, that was the traditional route. The second route, we were older, and I thought, we want to have kids.
Yes.
We've been together. We're making this commitment. Let's get married.
Oh. And how old were you at that point?
Maybe 40.
Oh, okay. So a little bit.
38.
Yes, a little bit
like
later.
Mm-hmm. And Karen said to me, I'm not going to my grave unmarried,
Okay. So even
and
then.
I said, absolutely.
Oh, okay. So that's very important, I think, again, when men and women are courting like that, there's nothing wrong with the traditional engagement. Yes, and I think that's wonderful. She spoke up for herself and you complied.
And said, I'm driving 3,000 miles with you. When we get to the other side, you better be ready to make that commitment.
She said that or you said that?
She said that.
I love it.
And I
She's
said,
from New York. She was a New Yorker.
I said, well, maybe I'm taking the long route. I'll take the southern route. It's the first time the cross-country drive took 19 weeks.
Oh, that's so fun. Michael's like, oh, okay. You're a little nervous, or you're just making a joke?
I'm making a joke, actually. 5 days we were here, and I knew. You know. You know when that person comes along.
Absolutely. So we both have children in their 30s. I'm just curious, Michael, as a father, how did you react when your daughter said, well, Dad, we're hanging out? And what did you want to say to her? What didn't you say to her?
What I did say was, what exactly does that mean?
Okay.
But she sort of said it's interesting, which is this is a relatively new person. And so to her credit, I mean, she's busy with school, finishing her master's, and has other things on her mind.
Right.
And so I'm sure in a relationship, you're always balancing. The other person has all this commitment, and you need to spend time with each other. But she did say, we talk all the time. We like hanging out. I'm thinking, okay.
That sounds
If
good.
you're happy, I'm happy, But, it's like you watch your kids. You see them go through relationships. Yes. Crazy finishes and, and you feel for them. But at the same time, it's their life. They have to navigate this.
Yes.
And when you try to somehow tell them, I can tell everybody else. It's when it's your own children, they're the last to hear it.
That's very true. So yes, got to give them space for sure. But you do want to role model certain values that you hope you're passing down on them. So again, very interesting. Your daughter is becoming a professional, and I think this is a great thing now for women. A lot of women sometimes might make more money than the person they're dating, which is absolutely wonderful, beautiful, that you have your career. But women, if you want to have a family, you're still caught in that I'm going to have to, at some point, take maternity leave, and maybe even after that, with my profession, um, take some months off of work. Now, a lot of companies now, thank goodness, give that option.
They understand how hard it is to be a mother and a parent. It's
so hard. So even though maybe traditional relationships are changing, what's not so much changing is what it means to be a mother, a father. It's the same pull and responsibility that you share as a couple, and you really, again, want to discuss that before you get married. Discuss your ideas regarding those two things.
Except, I don't think you know what it is like to be a parent until you're a parent. I mean, you have some idea, but I think when you bring that baby home, I remember looking at Karen going, okay. Now what? Now what?
I know.
It's like the baby is lying there and thinking, okay, well, what's next?
We'll figure it out. But yes, but it's good that hopefully women can talk to their husbands and husbands can talk to their wives about, okay, this is how we want to raise, and we can have an open discussion about it. The other important thing is, if you don't want to get married, but you do want to buy a house together and you still want to have a child, you better still have some very serious conversations about how that's going to go, because now there's lots of legal implications.
I was about to say, yes, there are many, I think, legal implications to that piece. And the other piece is just about a respect about the relationship.
Exactly.
I think to be married or not is almost secondary to the real respect and relationship between people.
Yes.
You can call it marriage, you can have a certificate. That doesn't guarantee that you are a decent parent or a good partner.
Right.
And there are people that want to be with each other. They choose not to get married for whatever reasons.
Yes.
I'd put my money on them. You know what I mean? Now the flip side of that, of course, is what exactly are you role modeling? You're role modeling your own integrity. And they're hearing another voice going, everyone's getting married, you're not. There are a lot of poles in the world.
That's right.
You have to be able to stand your ground.
I agree. Because if you really don't want to, then absolutely should not.
Then you should not, or you're going to be in that 50% pool.
That's right. But if you're with somebody who really does, and you really care about that person, that also sets up some very interesting dilemmas. Okay, so again, I have a couple. They're not married yet, but I know she really wants to have a child, but he already has a child, and he had a child early on, and she wants to make sure, though, that you're going to have a child with me too. And so a comment was maybe, yes, if you really want me to, I will. Okay, I will, and I'll be a good father. But it's not like
it's not saying I want to.
No, but in a way, I don't have a problem with that. I really want to talk about that, because if I'm saying to you, this is real important to me, but it's not important to you, but I'm important to you, and you're willing to do that for me, that's okay.
But what happens if he comes back, and I like that, and says, the last go around, it was just the two of us. I was the center of her universe, and she was the center of mine. Now you have a child that becomes the center of your universe, and you spend less time and energy with your partner.
That's going to happen.
and I think that's always a big issue. I think if it's handled properly, you really grow as a couple, as parents, and if not, I think you're in some real trouble, because that child demands your attention. And you can't say, oh yeah, I'll be right back. I'll be back tomorrow. We have a date night tonight. I mean, it doesn't happen like that.
I agree.
So,
well, I just want to, I think I'm trying to get the point across, because we're talking about coming together, getting married, not getting married, all of the things that implicate that sometimes you're not going to have the exact same shared vision. And don't let that necessarily get in the way and make that a big problem, or say, well, you're not that excited about what I'm excited about, so this is the wrong person for me. That's not necessarily true, right?
I'm laughing because in my earlier hallucinogenic days.
Oh, there were, huh? Okay.
I used to have a theory, which was the cave theory.
The cave theory.
The cave theory, which is I grew up in one cave and you grew up in another. And then at some point we come out of those caves and we cross paths.
Yes.
Okay? Now think about the world, the billion, God knows how many people, and you come from one place and I come from another. Well, now we come together and we're going to pool our lives and resources. That they match is a miracle beyond miracles. They never totally match because we come from two different caves.
Right, exactly.
Now I learned to be more specific as I got older and, learn psych terms and stuff. But we come from two different places. Yes. So I think, to your point, is well taken, which is I have to bring mine and share it with you so you can understand it and I can understand yours and say, okay, there's some middle ground, that we don't get everything we want all the time.
That's
but
true.
The two of us now are forging a third cave.
Yes,
so to speak.
That's true.
And it'll have its own set of rules and its own life. Mm-hmm. And I think then it works. I think if you make believe you're not coming from two different caves, you're in trouble.
Yes.
Because if one's going, I want this, oh, sure. They lose themselves. You can't find the other person. You know what I mean? They're so busy throwing that stuff out that one day they disappear. And you go, where'd they go? And they go, I had enough. And you go, wait, you never said anything.
You never said anything, which is that causes so many problems. Keeping things in and not communicating, and then, I'm afraid to say it, or when I've tried to say it, you shut me down. Right. Definitely. So traditional marriage is fine, and if that's what you are looking for, definitely. But please find someone who wants that. But if you want non-traditional, no marriage, but children, house together, just make sure that you can discuss it way before anything happens.
That you're both on the same page.
Be comfortable with that. But I really hope, and I hope for our world, that commitment isn't a bad thing anymore.
Oh, man, I hope not. Otherwise, all is lost because everybody's then floating around individually.
That's beginning to start to happen, I think. I see, and you can correct me, but I think more men in their 40s, they're not wanting to get married. And they're maybe as they're going into their 40s and later 40s, now I'm ready. But the woman again in her 30s, I don't want some guy who's 10 years older than me. I want somebody my own age, But I don't know if men right now are having that kind of stability inside themselves to think, I can do that.
And somewhat driven by work becomes the most important thing. Success, power, and a relationship is secondary. I can have any relationship I want in time.
In time.
And I think they put it aside.
Yes. Well, and work is important for sure for men, but
and for women.
Absolutely. I have worked my whole adult life and professionally, as a therapist since 1985, and I wouldn't want to ever to give that up. But luckily for me, my profession, I could do it part-time as well as, and I was able to do that when I was raising my children. So I really appreciated that I had that kind of openness to do so. Okay, anything left you want to say about traditional marriage?
No,
I'm for it.
Well, you know what? I mean, I'm for it in the sense of if that's what somebody wants, if that's what two people want, more power to them.
Yes.
I think, we should just throw the labels away and say if two people are in the same dance,
yes,
and have the same set of values and it works for them and they bring integrity to that, then I wish them luck. You know what I mean? Anything can work if you're really committed to it. And if not, and you use the traditional, because when I hear the word sometimes, it's very loaded with judgment. It's like, oh, that's old school. That's whatever it is. And I think we're trying to throw that away and say,
no judgment on that.
It just, what works. And if you bring respect and a really sort of rich relationship, call it whatever you want.
Exactly. I guess maybe the word is commitment. Maybe that's a better word in a way, because commitment can be brought to the relationship in many ways, but you got to work at it and not give up. So many times, I'm going to end with saying this, is that couples, they want, all right, that's it. I don't want to do this anymore. This is too hard, when they're in couples therapy. And I say, give me 6 months, 8 months. Do this work. Do it. You will see a change. But it's so hard to believe in that when all the problems happen up here, but the real change is happening quietly when you dedicate yourself to many principles that are important to make a relationship work.
One last thing, and this is a bigger conversation.
Sure.
The overlay of religion and politics these days, I think, are coloring the kinds of relationships that people commit to and are looking for and are hiding from. You know what I mean? I just think that you can't ignore it. It's a bigger topic and one I don't particularly want to go to.
Right.
But I think, that the religious overlay about, you live in sin or you live out of sin, that whole conversation is one. And, the politic of conservatism in a certain way about what relationships should look like. I think people buy into it, and for some it works and it's great. But others, I think there's a judgment about this is bad, this is wrong, and it doesn't serve anybody.
No, never.
I don't think it does, and so I think people hide their feelings about things. I think they're not true to themselves, and I think those who are driven and pointing that finger, it's like, where they end up most of the time. They're so busy judging everything else.
Exactly.
So, it's a complicated world. It's not an easy one. You can work with someone and they're in the safety of your office, and then they go back out in the world, and it's sort of that relentlessness, about just all the pushes and forces that don't allow you to be real.
Exactly. Well, good conversation today about tradition and again, like Michael and I were saying, make up your own decision, but understand what that is for yourself.
Agreed.
Okay.